Here's the only hot air we hear, Mike.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Germs of all ages. Welcome to the Reloading Podcast here on the Firearms Radio Network. Tonight, we're talking 308s and echoes.
Uh-oh.
And lead and pewter and 9mm and Dillons. And I think the echo's gone. That echo was brought to you by jackasses across the country. Cheers to them.
Cheers, jackasses.
Hey, look. It's not a cider or a shandy. Amazing. And it was in the beer fridge.
It's not a dark beer, though.
It's a red ale. It's about as close to a dark beer as I get, except for Guinness on St. Paddy's Day.
If you don't have to chew on it, it's not dark enough.
But that does not go in the beer fridge. Guinness is much better at room temperature. I don't know. Call me a pansy, whatever you want. I just don't like a really hoppy, bitter beer, and I don't really like a super dark beer. Although every once in a while, I'll have a Liney's Dark, and that's, pretty good, but I don't know. Everybody, that's why they make so many different types, because everybody likes different types of beer. But this isn't Handgun Radio, and Weird's not here, so let's quit talking alcohol and start talking reloading. But first, I want to take time to thank Sean and the gang over at Firearms Radio Network for giving us a place to host this shenanigan-filled mess. And we want to thank Jake and Ryan over at Patriot Patch Company. Oh, what's that? Oh, can you see it? Oh, well, here's what it looks like. See, Jake got visited by the ATF, and they wanted to know what he knew and what they could do to help with all these boating accidents that are happening. And so Jake and Ryan got to work, and, well, they came up with some nice inflatables for your AR, so you don't have to have a boating accident. Of course, as far as we're concerned, the ATF can go take a flying leap. Bing! But it is a fun summer patch. Not quite as good as last year's August patch, but it's still very good. How do you get that? Well, you go to patriotpatch.co and you become a Patch of the Month member. Or go to firearmsradio.tv/pledge, click on the Reloading Podcast link, and become a $20 level, which gets you the Patch of the Month, and you're supporting the Reloading Podcast at the same time, which then it makes you eligible for giveaways. And now that things are starting to get a little calmer, I am going to start to be able to actually go through some testing and start giving some of the stuff away that we've been collecting for the last few months. Unfortunately, life's busy. And I just, unfortunately, with all of the lovely problems I've had with audio, various here, there, and everywhere, it's taken a lot of the time that I would be able to do other things to be able to do this. I've changed out a whole bunch of stuff. Heck, I changed computers, a whole bunch of other things. And right now we seem to be buzz free. We have a good sound quality. It's constant. I don't fade in and out because I'm moving around. So, knock on chipboard. Oh, here we got some 2x4s. We'll knock on some 2x4s that the audio gremlins are gone for now. And when I'm done here, I'm going to go take a couple shots at Jameson in honor of Mr. Murphy, so hopefully he'll leave us alone. Anyway.
I have a question, Mike.
What?
You said Weird and Handgun Podcast?
Yes. Weird Beard. If you do not listen to the Handgun Radio Podcast, you need to correct yourself. He does talk about more than just revolvers. He talks a lot of cool stuff. And if you are lush like the rest of us, Weird does the drink of the week. That's right. Every single week, there is a different adult beverage that Weird tells you how to make and what to make it with. So why wouldn't you at least listen to the beginning? Come on, it's awesome. So
what's the name of Bob Main's podcast?
He doesn't do it anymore, does he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he does.
He just celebrated 9 years.
Yeah.
Handgun World.
I think it's Handgun World.
The world is okay. That's
But
it.
I will.
That's why you were. That was throwing me off. It was like that didn't sound right.
Yeah, I thought he quit not too long ago.
No, he didn't.
Oh, unlike Doc and the gang, he actually is still doing it, and he's still doing it. He slowed down a little bit, I think, but no, he's still doing it. In fact, he just put one out yesterday, episode 461, A Year with Three Guns. So he's been busy over the summer, so he hasn't put them out weekly. And I know he did slow down a little bit, but he's back going full strength. So
That's good. I could have swore he quit because I took him off my list, so I'm going to have to re-add him back on.
you better get back on that. So no, he was just slowing down a bit. So, but
He's no quitter.
that's right. And just
Not
remember,
like
don't raise a gun because
The
you can't.
gun dudes or any of those bitches.
Well,
What are you talking about, Jason? They still podcast.
Yeah, a girl runs their podcast now.
gun dudes.
Yeah.
The Gun Dude.
Come on,
SX3 podcast.
that's right. Actually,
It's a great podcast, by the way.
all of them still podcast technically. Because Carl
What's it? Paracast.
Parabellum,
Paracast.
parachute.
And it's not about ghosts.
Paracast is where Tommy and Tom Nelson and Koski and the rest of the gang wound up because
Really?
they were severely addicted to it and they couldn't take any time off. So Tommy started one up right after the gun dudes kind of called it or temporary. There is still talk in the works of getting them all back together at some point in time, but schedules kind of aren't allowing that. It's, they didn't have like a a Beatles breakup where there's no way in hell they're ever getting back together again type thing. No, it was just everybody got busy. We get busy. So, and they all got busy with different things and, kids are different ages. And so that's kind of what happened with the gun dudes. And so now they're kind of all doing their own things and stuff. So
How about Travis? Is he on a podcast?
Maverick? No, Maverick is not doing anything. So
he's a quitter.
yeah, he's like the trucker. He's a quitter.
Yeah. Couldn't hang.
So
You're trying to say the unknown trucker isn't podcasting anymore?
no,
Yeah, that little bitch quit.
goodness grief.
Probably quite a while back.
Like shortly after NRA 2015.
Yeah, I was going to guess about 3 years ago.
So yeah, he's been done for a while. And
Too bad. I like listening to him.
well, everything's still out there, so you can go out and listen to it still.
Hey, just a little known fact. Willy Wonka actually called Carl back to the factory. That's why they took some time off. That's the truth.
Oh, that's what happened. Okay. I thought it was
Not everybody knows that, but I got some inside info.
nice.
So how short is he, Travis?
I'll tell you off air.
Okay.
So on to what we've done this week. We'll start with Phil. Phil, what you been doing?
Well, in order of most frustrating to most fun, I had to raid the reloading budget to fix a clothes dryer, which is only reloading related because it stole all my money for reloading stuff.
Yep.
But the neighbors were going to start looking funny if we hung up clotheslines in the front yard. Trimmed a bunch of brass, which is boring. Brass prep sucks.
Here.
And got to help my dad set up and play with his brand new Dillon 650, which was honestly really making me jealous.
Nice. Yeah.
Like, I'm not even going to lie. I am that one stubborn person who says I'll reload on a single stage till the day I die, or I'm too crippled to do it, because I love the process and the hobby. I mean, to me, I am perfectly happy to take twice as long to make my ammo because it's a hobby. I enjoy doing it. But there's something about sitting down in front of Big Blue and cranking out 20 loaded rounds in 12 seconds, and you just look at it like, oh. And that's where I am right now. I'm just thinking to myself, if I know anybody who will trade a kidney for a Dillon 650. But in any case, happy for my dad. He's off to the races, and he's going to enjoy that piece of equipment once he gets up over the learning curve. But I was impressed.
So how far
Very
would you live from your dad?
Maybe a half hour.
Okay.
Close enough that I there's no reason I can't go over there and, sneak around the dog, let myself into his garage, load a couple thousand rounds, and sneak back out before he realizes I was over there.
Exactly. Welcome back, Jim.
Yeah, Phil, like I was telling you, you get yourself a trimmer for your dad, put on that 650, go to town. That's
actually what he and I were discussing the other day, because I told him what you suggested, that he integrate an RT 1500 into a tool head just to do 5.56 brass prep, and he saw the wisdom in it pretty quickly. The little things we're dealing with now is like, obviously we have to lube the brass before we run it through the machine. Up till now, I think he's been using just a lube pad and Lee lube, so he's gonna have to switch over to something you can spray on.
Yeah, so do that.
So he doesn't goop up, the case feeder and everything.
Yeah.
And just trying to work out. I think what he's planning on doing at this point is put a universal decapper in position 1, so he can knock the primers out there, then go into the trimmer, then go into a full-length resizing die so that he can expand the case mouth back out. Because at least what he had been told was that if you don't run it through an expander ball after the trimmer, your neck is actually going to be too small, which makes sense because there can't be an expander ball where the trimmer is.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have a 650, Phil, but what I do is I use that 10-to-1 lanolin alcohol mixture, and I have a whole bin. I just lube all my brass in that bin, and then I run it through the 1050, and I have 2 sizing dies in there, and it, of course, it trims everything, sizes it, swages the pockets, and then I just dump all that back into the tumbler for however long. And then when I go to reload, I have another tool head that in the first station is a Mighty Armory decapping pin. So just in case there's any corncob media or any debris stuck in that flash hole, it makes sure it punches all that out.
That makes sense. Speaking of which, Carl Rabelais is in the chat. That's my father. So he's going to pick on me from the chat window for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I couldn't guess that.
Yeah, but for anybody in the audience that is looking at it, it's my podcast name, not my name. But yeah, it just been trying to help him kind of get settled with it, and I have to admit, I kind of expected there'd be some teething problems with it, as far as like trying to manage 4 different dies all at the same time. But I found that once we really sat down and started tweaking the dies and everything adjusted, it wasn't any different than setting up my my single stage. All the same rules apply. You're going to turn down either your internal stem or the die body itself, depending on what you're trying to adjust, what die you're working with. That's all exactly the same. It's just everything happening at once.
Yeah,
So
you
have to
still
kinda-
start off with each individual die and get each one adjusted. It's not like you're just throwing all the dies in there and just kind of going, willy-nilly. You start off with just like you were on a single stage. Just get each individual die adjusted first, and then just start pulling that handle.
I will say this much, though. Having had a chance to play with my dad's 650 a little bit, I'm almost willing to recant what I've always said about always start on a single stage. Almost ready to. Because, I mean, because with the experience that I have, I looked at that 650 and looked at like the ammo that was coming, looked at some of the initial test rounds that came out of the press, and I was like, okay, well, we're under expanding. This isn't quite adjusted right. And like because of the experience my dad and I had setting up a single stage and turret, we knew what to fix immediately. But it was much simpler to adjust than I expected it to be. It's just the fact that there's everything happening at once. I think that's where I'd be hesitant to tell a brand new reloader to start with a 650, because there's so many things happening at once. It's very easy to lose track of or just get overwhelmed. But I want one badly.
Yeah. Like the night I don't have a 650, but the tool heads aren't very expensive, so it makes a lot of sense to get like a trimmer or whatever and just get you a new tool head and just get one set up and just process all your brass. Like a tool head for the 1050, it's like 220 bucks.
Holy crap.
Oh, what is it? What is it, Jason? Like 35, 40 bucks for a tool head for a 650?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then you have the Swageit on your 650, right?
Correct.
That's another thing you should look at, Phil, is getting the Swageit.
Well, what my dad has is he has a Dillon Super Swager bench mounted.
No, do it on the press.
Okay. What piece of equipment do I now need to tell my dad to look into? Because I thought you can only put that on a 1050. You can fit it on a 650?
Yeah, Swageit.
Yeah, Swageit. The 1050 has it built into the machine, but then the company's name is Swageit, and it goes on to you have to add it to the 650. From what I understand, you don't want to tell Dillon you did that. Right, Jason?
Yeah, it takes the place of where the primer seater would go. And I guess if you ever break your plate because it's out of time and the Swageit went up at the wrong time, it would snap your plate. But just make sure everything's timed right, and it's a non-issue.
So there's nothing to happen to the machine. It's just the plate that could get damaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's not bad.
Well, I can already tell that y'all are going to become the great enablers for my father as y'all are for me. Thank you, guys.
When I can, I'm getting a 650 just to set it up for various calibers and just. I say the 1050 is nice, but it sure is expensive.
Yeah, he and I kind of weighed out a 550, a 650, and a 1050, and the 650 seemed to be the intersection between reasonable cost and lots of features.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I mean, that seems like the one to get, in my opinion. I could see a 550 for some uses, but I just can't see a lot of reason not to jump to a 650 unless you have to do something really specific a 650 is not adept at.
Yeah, that 650 is nice because it's got the Dillon no BS warranty. This 1050, they only have a year warranty.
For
so after that, I'm on.
For a $2,000 press, I'd hope the thing would make you eggs in the morning personally.
It's a commercial press, whereas the 650 is a homeowner, whatever you call it, press.
Retail or yeah.
Consumer
Average
versus commercial.
Consumer grade. Thank you. So yeah, that's been my week. Got to play with my dad's new toy. Insanely jealous.
Yeah, I think over the weeks we're going to hear you talking more and more about adding stuff to that 650, and then eventually you'll be telling us how you can't believe you loaded all that ammo on that single stage.
Oh, I'm used to it at this point. Matter of fact, my local brass guy, he lives the next town over from me, and he buys range brass in sorts it out and checks it and resells it. But over the couple years I've been reloading and buying brass from him, he's told me on several occasions he's shocked I still reload on a single stage, because he said, most guys like a month or two and they go get a turret, or 6 months they'll go get a Dillon. He said, here you are a couple years later still on a rock chucker. And I'm like, I'm stubborn. No other excuse.
So Jason, did you get out and do anything this weekend?
No, I didn't.
You didn't shoot at any dueling trees or nothing?
I'm worried about that dueling tree. I don't think it'll hold up, Travis.
If you're shooting at it, you won't even hit it. It's your wife I'm worried about. I'm going to be doing a lot of warranty repair when Kathy's done with that thing. I don't care what you do.
Who invited you anyway?
I don't know.
By the way, a little couple pieces of information. That XL 650 tool head is a paltry $31.95 from Dillon.
Yeah, it's a bargain.
And then if you're really interested, they've got a really nice billet available.
Yeah, there's a bunch of companies that actually that have some engraved tool heads, so you can put whatever, caliber specific. And
yeah,
I should have bought a couple of those 650s versus this 1050 for how much it costs.
Yeah. And then the billet aluminum color anodized tool heads, which look like a gold, a black, a silver, and a blue. Those are only $34.95. And then if you wanted to get the tool head that's set up for the trimmer, that's only $35.95. So.
Yeah, see, I just bought one for the 1050, and the one with the special step down for the trimmer was $240.
Must be nice having your money, Travis.
Right?
Well, I bought. You can see them. You can see them right there. I just bought 6 of them.
At $200 a piece.
And the stands. The stands are $35.
And the stands. Holy crap, Travis! What do you do for a living?
I work.
Mail prostitutes. He sells targets. Yep. They cost you $5, and you sell them to me for a big profit.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to order some more stuff because I just bought a bunch of heads, Jason.
All right.
The problem with Jason is that a target lasts him a lifetime because he never shoots things.
You know what, Phil?
You're the one that fired opening shots, Jason.
No, Phil did.
Shots.
I remember what he said, too. He fired the first shots.
Speaking of firing shots, there's this guy named Carl that's in the chat. And
yeah, he says bring the grandbaby over, Phil.
Yeah.
She's my little reloading buddy. Actually, I forgot to mention that. She was in the garage with me yesterday, loading 5.56.
How old is she now?
She is 6, starting first grade day after tomorrow. But I was out in
your only child?
That's my only one.
You should have another one.
Yeah, you sound like my parents. Be the same age too.
By the way, Phil, your dad said you're buying the trimmer.
Yeah, take it out of my inheritance. On that note, the last time I sold him a gun, he was like, if you ever want it back, I'll sell it back to you for a reasonable price. And I was like, well, if I wait long enough, I'll get it back anyway.
My son said that to me a long time ago.
Yeah, but then he went up me and told me he was going to will it to my brother.
Good for you, Carl.
Yeah.
Well,
Good for you, Carl.
You
Don't
see
take
where I get it from, right?
Yeah, don't take Phil's trash.
Well, Jim, what did you do this week?
Well, not anything directly, but I've invested in some heavy-duty shelving for the reloading shed.
Jim, I remember a time on every single podcast you used to say something like, every day I do something for the Second Amendment.
Yep, I do. Yeah, I do.
Now all he does is shelving.
For the Second Amendment.
I see all the Facebook stuff, but I haven't seen you actually hands-on lately.
Well, that's because I'm working in my garage trying to get my stuff cleared out of the way or whatever, so we can get around into the garage.
Because, Jim, I'm waiting to hear the day you're back out shooting, and that's the day I want your address, and you're going to get a package, but I'm just waiting.
Okay, Phil. Okay.
And don't lie and say you're shooting. We're going to need to see some proof.
No problem. It'll be video.
Jim, didn't you go to something over the
Oh God, yes. Thank you, Mike. I went to the Dixie Gun Knife Show over Sunday. Jesus, Pete, did I? And I even bought a box of. I even bought a brick of primers, for God's sake.
Full credit goes to Jared in the chat for that one.
Thank you, Jared. He knew about it. Yeah, Jared knew about it. Yes, I bought a brick of Federal 210 match grade primers. It's like Jiminy Christmas. Sorry. My memory.
It happens it happens, Jim. It happens.
My memory is becoming non-existent.
Your memory is the second thing to go.
In your case, your looks were.
So, Jim, is it a good thing that you wrote down all that stuff on rice paper and parchment when you were in a youth, so that way you don't have to try and remember all that from a millennia or two ago?
Yeah.
I thought he held the stone tablet up and got struck with a lightning bolt.
My name's not Moses. Don't lay that one on me.
But you are that
I've
old.
broken every commandment there is. Okay.
No, Jim actually was carrying the third tablet, dropped it.
That was not a reference to your divinity, Jim, just your age.
I ain't divine either.
So
No, I had to leave the YouTube chat. For whatever reason, my bandwidth is limited, and I just closed that particular window out. Just staying with Hangouts for now.
because you move halfway across the country and your ISP still sucks.
Pretty much.
Well, Mike, what did you do?
Well, edited the podcast, swore a lot, cussed a lot, got cranky and pissed. You know what? The good thing about Call of Duty is it's a great way to let off some steam because it's not real. I don't have to worry about felony smoking people. Anyway, that was pretty much the other part of my weekend was spent actually disconnecting the transfer case on the Jeep. Well, what was left of it. Finally got it apart. However, I got a nice surprise. I started to pull it apart, and all of a sudden, I got a bath.
You got
Yeah, there's instead of like they do on the Chevys, where the transfer case, and even actually on the Fords, where the transfer case is literally bolted right to the transmission. On this stupid Jeep, thanks Freedom Group, there is a mechanical spacer of some sort. I don't even know what the hell it does. So I don't know if the rear main seal on the tranny is junk, or if there technically isn't one, or what the hell, because I was able to actually find the shop manual online. Yay, internet. Code is free speech. And I was able to download that, so I'm trying to page through it. It's 2,400 pages, so yeah, it's taking a little while. But so yeah, now all of a sudden I got to figure out if the fluid came from the tranny, because they use ATF +4 or Mopar tranny fluid in the transmission and in the transfer case. So I got to figure out, and obviously I don't know if it was in this intermediate case or not. So that was, a good portion of my weekend. I cleaned up the bench a little bit, so I actually have a little bit of room to work. I looked through the goodies that Travis sent me. I still don't have them displayed. What Travis sent me was a bunch of empty old powder containers. Yes, you can ship containers through the postal service if they don't actually have powder in them because they're no longer hazmat. So that was kind of fun to look at all those, and eventually I got to figure out a way to get them all displayed. So it was pretty cool. I would show you, but it's way over there, so I'll have to do that later. But yeah, that's pretty much it here. So on to.
Weren't we going to do something this week, Mike?
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I was going to do lots of weeks that never happens. To which are you referring?
Oh, you got a powder blue, almost a baby blue machine sitting to your left.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. But first, we're going to go to the Cartridge Corner. Brought to you this week by that bum from Idaho, Buckeye Targets. So, he didn't know I was doing that. So this week, we're going to talk about the 7.62 by 51 mm, or the 7.62 NATO, or the 308 Winchester. So it's currently the second most sold cartridge in the US, at least. I would say, as far as rifle, I would say behind the 223 5.56. It's still, I mean, literally, especially if you're hand loading, you can literally take any game on the continent with it. And up into, other than probably the five dangerous animals in Africa, and I don't remember what they all are, so I'm not going to quote them, but if you're hand loading and you know what you're doing, there really isn't much that you can't hunt with a 308. However, that's not its current popularity. The current popularity is in the AR-10 platform because it gives you a longer reach. And people like to shoot longer than 600 yards with an AR. So they like to do the AR. They use the AR platform, but they use the AR-10 platform to go 308, or, as a starting point off, kind of like what a lot of us intend to do with the AR-15. You start off with the base cartridge and then away you go, because just like the AR-10 or AR-15 platform, there's a whole buttload of cartridges you can do for an AR-10. So the 308 Winchester 7.62 NATO, one of the most popular and versatile centerfire cartridges ever made. What it is they decided, the U.S. military, yes, it's another military-based cartridge, most of them are, decided that the .6 was a little long, and it had a little too much recoil. There was lots of different reasons, up to and including using too much powder. Well, corded at that time, but and they were always looking a way to cut costs. And I wasn't able to really find any hard facts on, there's all sorts of different rumors and stuff and on how exactly it came about. But, there's different rumors and stuff on how it came about. Some people said they just decided to hack off some of a 30-06 cartridge. Some people say all these different things. So, but the bottom line is, it's a change from the standard, which, you know, from basically 03, you know, 1903 all the way through, you know, I think 49's when they kind of started developing it. You know, you're looking at the 30-06 was it. You know, granted the 30-3 for 3 years, but we covered that, you know. But you're talking that case length was the standard cartridge for the US military, for the foot soldier. And so, you know, they started getting into different things. And one of the things, you know, they finally figured out that it was the 7.62 by 51 is the one that they decided upon. And then, you know, later on it got the NATO designation because, you know, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But it was actually, so Winchester actually introduced it in 52 as the civilian counterpart to the 7.62 NATO, 7.62 by 51. And, well, actually 7.62 NATO and 7.62 by 51 are different cartridges. Let me rephrase that. So the 308 and the 7.62 NATO are the same dimensions. But the 51 was kind of the predecessor to it, shall we say. You know, and then all of a sudden they figured out that it was a pretty good cartridge. And, you know, the 308, if you're looking for one cartridge to get it done, grab the 308. It's economical. You can find, I mean, you can find what is it? I saw a Thompson. I don't know what the model is, but the Thompson bolt action rifle from $250 at Cabela's the other day. So you can get a 308 rifle really cheap. Everybody makes, if they're going to make a cheap rifle, they make it in 308. You can't always find 6.5. You can't always find 30-aught. Well, for the most part, you can find 30-06, but you don't find like 7 mag or 7.8 or anything else like that as much as you will a 308, because 308s sell, period, especially on this continent. And there is a slew of options for reloading with it. Everything from, if you can find them, 90 grain, all the way up to, I think, you know, basically everything that you can load a 30-06. It's the same bullet, same diameter. Now, the goofy thing is, the parent case isn't actually the 30-06. So the parent case is actually the 300 Savage. And that's kind of a misnomer that people think is that it actually is just a shortened 30-06 cartridge, which is not. So let's see here, some of the specs on it. Overall cartridge length is 2.810. Your brass length is 2.015. Your head is 0.473. Your rim is 0.054. From the length of the body to from the end of the shoulder to the head of the case is 1.560. So it's a 20-degree shoulder. You know, it's some of the specs. There is just a plethora of options, and a plethora of powders available. I mean, most of your rifle powders you can use for it. Some of your pistol powders you can use for it, depending. Or your interchangeable powders, shall we say. So that work for both. You know, in the Lyman manual, there is probably 20 different bullet weights. So, but, you know, it's kind of some of the fun stuff about it. And you're talking pressures of the maximum SAAMI pressure is 62,000 psi. So, but you know, it's one of my favorite cartridges by all means. What are your guys' take on the 308?
I like it.
Why?
Because I have a whole bunch of brass.
That is a valid reason, though.
Damn right.
I like it because it's pretty universal. You can load I think 110 up to at least 180.
240.
Yeah, subs doing 240, 220.
I mean, I got load data to 208, so
yeah,
it's versatile.
Is kind of if you're going to shoot anything of distance, 208 is kind of the top of the line there, but they're loading 240s for subs. And what we mean by sub is subsonic for use in suppressed or silenced firearms. And yes, I usually try and refer to it as silenced because that's what Hiram Maxim called it. So there. But so I said 7.62 by 51. And so, you know, you go back and forth and blah, 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 and everybody freaks out about it. And depending on who you ask, you're going to get 5 different stories on whether you can use 7.62 by 51 in a 308.
Yes.
Or vice versa, where you can use a 308 and 7.62 by 51. Sammy, which is the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute, says their interchange is considered safe. Your mileage may vary. Your age of firearm may vary. If you have any doubt, don't do it. So, at the very minimum, you're going to be picking brass pieces out of your chamber. At the very maximum, they're going to be putting flowers on top of your dirt pile. But that's the information that's out there about it. Basically, what the difference between the two, and good luck trying to find something, is a difference in cartridge. Or not in cartridge, but in chamber. So nobody ever made like a wild for the 308 situation like they did for the 5.56 223. But it's because there's not really, as far as everything I can find, there really isn't. And if somebody else has data out there that I couldn't find, please send it to me. But there really isn't that big of a difference. So I've got a 7.62 by 51. It's a 1916 Mauser, which was rebarreled to 7.62 by 51. And when I get around to it, I'm going to figure out a test rig and take it out and shoot it. And what I mean by test rig means I sure in the heck am not going to be standing next to it when I shoot it. So, but, you know, that's one of those things that people test. Some people test, some people don't. Some people just say, screw it, and off you go. And that's kind of one of those things you have to make a decision on your own. But as far as the podcast goes, we're not going to recommend it. Just because there is always that possibility. If it's 7.62 by 51, then load it to 7.62 by 51, which is basically a downloaded 308. If it's 308, then go ahead and load it to 308. I know what? Sorry.
I was going to say, to that end, if somebody's looking for load data for 7.62 by 51, Hornady 9th edition, and I imagine probably their other editions, they have 308 Winchester service rifle data, which is already downloaded from their typical 308 data. So that might be a good place to start.
Where was that again?
Hornady, I've got on Hornady 9th edition. I wouldn't be surprised if it's also in their 10th, but I don't have the 10th edition. But if you're scrolling through the Hornady 9th edition, right after 308 Winchester is 308 Winchester service rifle. And best I can tell, all those loads look a little bit lighter than a comparable load in the previous section under 308 Win. Which is honestly one of the reasons I really like Hornady data, because I mean, like within the 223, they have 223 data, and then they have 556 NATO data, and they are different.
I like the 308 Winchester cartridge personally because, well, I mean, I've got a Ruger M77 chambered for it.
My man.
Yeah, I like the rifle. I like the cartridge, and it's versatile because I've put 170 grain cast bullets through that rifle. I put 110 grain jacketed hollow points through it. They're short little boogers, and I've went clear up to 175 grain bullets. And those things, you don't see much difference in the recoil between that and the 168. But, you know, they just seem to shoot flatter. I know they don't shoot flatter. You know, I know ballistically they don't. But they just seem to.
What you're saying is they cover more distance for a comparable drop. The ballistic curve is less, it's flatter and less like an artillery round. I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah, it just seems to shoot flatter. But I haven't done that much testing on it. I did more testing on my 280 AI than I did the 308. Matter of fact,
a lot of guys. Sorry, Jim, go on.
My 308 is up in Pennsylvania right now. I left it with a friend. Go ahead, Travis.
I know a lot of guys like the 308 because it's such a proven platform. It's the trajectory is very predictable, and hence, therefore, you get a pretty good sense of where you're putting that projectile.
Yeah, that was a lot of my personal draw for 308 Winchester is just that, you know, when I first started reloading, 308 was the first centerfire rifle cartridge I reloaded for. So it made sense to reload something that's a known commodity, lots of history, lots of data, lots of opinions, lots of components. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's if you're going to start reloading a centerfire rifle cartridge, 5.56 and 308 Winchester are good places to start because of the knowledge base to back you up. You're not blazing a trail by yourself. That being said, now that I've dug into 308 Winchester a lot, honestly, for my next rifle, I'm kind of looking at 6.5 Creedmoor because it does everything 308 Winchester will do, but it shoots a little flatter and it's ballistically more efficient. But I would still say that, I mean, you can't throw 308 Winchester down the stairs and say it's a has-been cartridge. It's been dropping game, and it's been serving the U.S. military very, you know, in its NATO guys very well for a very long time because it does what it does well.
Jason, you shoot a lot of 308, don't you?
I do.
You got an AR-10.
Uh-huh.
I always see pictures of you out on the range.
Yep.
Well, don't say anything else.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on? Because I got a lot of people telling me, for long range wise, they still recommend starting off with the 308. And then you got some people say no, just start off with the 6.5. What's your thoughts?
Well, the components are or were cheaper than the 6.5. But now that the military has gone to 6.5, I think I'm already seeing that change to where you're going to start getting components cheaper and cheaper. And really right now, I mean, the components aren't bad like they were when they first started. I think you could go either way. I'm not going to tell you not to get 308 because it's an awesome round. Love it. But I was curious about 6.5, so I went that direction, and I'm digging it. I like it.
Gents, let me ask you a dumb question. I don't know the 6.5 cartridge at all, but is the parent case of the 6.5 cartridge the 308 Winchester?
No. It's very, very similar, but the parent cartridge is not 308. I know because I've made that mistake, and someone corrected me, but I cannot for the life of me recall what the parent cartridge is. but I know for certain it's not 308.
All right.
But you can make 6.5 out of 308 cases.
It's
Well, I
kind of
know-
like you can make 308 brass out of 30-06. It's not the parent case, but it's so stinking close, you can do it.
Well, I know the 260 Remington, the 308 is a parent cartridge.
Chris P
Hold on.
says it was a 30 TC.
Yep, 30 TC.
which was based on the 308.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like splitting hairs, but I mean, if you want to be really technically nitpicky accurate.
Speaking of technically accurate, last week, and this is for the live listeners, I talked about making 9mm out of 223-556 cases. So, technically you can.
But
However, it's not as easy as trimming it. 380 it is, but 9mm there's a little more work involved. But yes, you actually, file it away for SHTF. Yes, you actually can make 9mm out of 223-556 brass.
although since you opened up the rabbit hole, I don't think I'd be cutting down my 223 brass to make 9mm.
Nope. Unless
It was already too short.
what's that?
Unless it was a split neck.
Split neck, damaged neck, something along that lines, or blanks.
What do you have to do to convert 556 into 9mm, Mike?
Basically, the base is slightly smaller on the 223. So, one of the people that there's all sorts of different things you can do. I mean, realistically, shit hits the fan. And people have tried this. You can trim it down, and it will feed. It will shoot. It won't necessarily eject unless you do adjusting to the ejector, because it won't necessarily grab it because it is a little narrower.
You mean extract, Mike?
Yeah, eject, extract. So the extractor won't actually grab the lip of the rim. So.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not going to go into details now of it. Maybe we'll do a podcast on it someday. But,
That would make an interesting topic. Just talk about all the different kinds of brass you can make from other kinds of brass.
right. So. But yeah, just to give you an idea. Let's see, is that the one I want? Come on, load faster. Anyway, so tonight we're going to talk about 9mm, and we're going to talk about making 9mm, and we're going to talk about what could have caused the gentleman's problem. So, and that doesn't want to load, so forget about it for now. Anybody who remembers last week, we had a picture up of a 9mm that was really hard crimped and also kind of had a hourglass shape to it, for lack of a better term. I guess that's pretty much covers. So, we kind of talked about different issues that could cause that. And then what we're going to do is use this lovely little 550 here, which you can't see because it's buried behind a bunch of other stuff now, and do what no reloader in their right mind should ever do. Mess with your dies once you've got them set where you want them. So, I'm going to do that for you all tonight. I'm going to take these 3 dies in this powder dispenser, and we're going to screw it all up, and then we're going to fix it. So, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of crap in the way. We've got a electronic scale. And then we've got a couple of reloading manuals. So what we want is we got to figure out what powder we're going to use. And that's actually decided already because I've already been using Tight Group and I'm going to continue to use Tight Group. So we've got a bottle of Tight Group here and another bottle here. Oh, wait a minute. Where's the open one? Oh, there it is. Ooh. Holy crap. I just found 2 more pound bottles I didn't know I had. Darn. That's a terrible problem to have. No, I will not send it to anybody, even if you pay the hazmat fee. So.
Beat me to it. I was going to suggest you give it to a listener.
Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, you didn't even know you had it, so it's not like you lost anything.
Well, if the listener lives in Wisconsin, I'll think about it. Because then they at least could come and meet me. But no, I'm not shipping, especially 1 pound of powder. The hazmat fees is ridiculous.
Just send it with the powder dispenser that you're going to send me.
Yeah.
And the lab radar.
You go ahead and pay the hazmat fee, and I'll think about it. So, all right. Anyway,
What's clinging to the inside of your powder hopper, Mike?
that's Tight Group. That's why we're using Tight Group. So,
If there happen to be any new reloaders out in the chat, or they're listening to this, a used dryer sheet works wonders for that.
yeah.
But everybody at least present probably already knows that, but just in case it gets glossed over.
Now the thing is you can kind of see it focuses. Come on, focus, you stupid thing. Come on. Yay, everybody's being entertained by my finger moving around. Come on. Good grief.
Still
Anyway.
focused on the book.
Yeah, I know. So, what I was trying to show everybody is that Tight Group is a flake powder. And what that means is it started life as basically an extruded. So it kind of started life as a stick powder, but then it went through the slicer, essentially, is the easiest way to describe it. It's not necessarily how they're all made, but that's how I'm explaining it. So picture you go to your local deli and you got the dude with, or the chick with the meat slicer or the cheese slicer, and they're taking and getting chunks off of that big long thing. That's kind of how they make some of the extruded powders, or some of the flake powders. Not all of them, but some of them. So I don't want to hear letters and song and screams and everything else. So, okay. So is putting the powder in the first thing I do? Anybody?
Not my opinion.
No.
Why not?
Well, if you're going to be setting up, you need to think about resizing your case, decapping your case, and then resizing it at the same time.
Okay.
So if you're serious about this, strip that press.
All right. Crap, I got to grab a wrench. All right. Filling some air. I got to grab a wrench.
Just because Jim didn't mention it, I was just going to throw in there, and this might just be my extraordinary OCD, which I'm willing to admit. Anytime I'm dealing with a powder measure, even though I know I clean them out after every single use, I take the daggum things apart and make absolutely sure there's not a kernel or a flake of another powder hiding in there waiting to jump into the next case. Even though I understand a single kernel of powder shouldn't hurt anything, it's my OCD.
Wow. Yeah, that's exactly what I would call that, Phil. OCD.
Hey, this is a hobby for OCD people, though.
Yep. You could take and pursue the rabbit hole as far as you want.
No. With me, it really is just kind of a cleanliness, not wanting to cross-contaminate powders, because the second thing I do after I get done loading filling up a powder hopper is I throw like 2 or 3 charges right back into the same container I poured the powder out of to kind of, get everything settled and moving. And the last thing I want to do is cross-contaminate this pound of powder with whatever's in the powder throw last. So that's me thinking out loud. Step 1, make sure the thing is clean. Then put powder in it, then throw about 4 charges right back into the same pound container and make sure everything's settled.
Well, that sounds good to me. Because I've actually I've made the mistake of cross-contaminating my powder.
Oh.
Yep. I had to throw a whole hopper away. I mixed BLC2 with Unique.
I don't think I've ever messed around with Unique. Do they look similar, or you just weren't paying attention? Just
I wasn't paying attention. There was a Unique in the hopper. I wasn't paying attention, and all of a sudden I looked through the wall of the powder hopper, and I saw 2 different configurations. I saw a flake powder and I saw a ball powder, and it's like, well, I'm not going to say what I said then.
We can fill in the blanks.
Yeah. There's at least 3 former military people in this channel right now, and we all know what kind of language that we were using.
Was it Navy language?
Remember, I've got 3 branches behind me, Phil.
I know, that's why I'm trying to figure out.
I'm highly qualified in the art of profanity. Let me say it that way. I'm highly qualified in the art of verbal profanity. Anyway, yeah, Mike, first thing you want to do is you need to resize your stuff, but you haven't stripped your press yet. But it's up to you how far you want to take this thing.
All the way.
Okay. Well, then I would suggest that you pull out your bullet seating die. Yep. That's the one. Well, that actually might be Trey. Is that a seating? Was that a seating and crimping die?
Yes, it is, and yes, it was set up for that.
Okay.
No.
Next, of course, would be your expander. No, that's not your expander. That's your expander.
I was loosening them both.
Sure, I don't blame you.
I suppose I should probably lock the camera on me.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
So.
My camera's still floating around on whoever's speaking. It just moved to Jason. Phil, say something.
Something.
It picked you up. However.
Strange.
Or Mike can't call us off the Hangouts and do it himself.
But on
That's all the problem.
YouTube, it is locked on mic.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Uh-huh.
All right. One more.
And he is an ugly bastard, too, I'll tell you.
He has what?
Nothing.
Uh-huh.
Well, Jason would be the authority on unattractive men.
Ooh! Another shot across the bow.
Wow,
I
Phil.
am not taking the shell plate out.
Well, why would that be, Mike? But you need to know how to adjust the shell plate. All right, we'll just stick with the dice for tonight, okay?
Theoretically, you have to adjust the shell plate. That's why I say theoretically.
Yeah, the shell plate can, in fact, be set too tight.
Right.
Or too loose.
So.
Anyway, so the first thing you need to do is resize your brass.
Yep.
And the general rule is exactly the same with that Dillon 550 as it is with Phil's RCBS single stage.
Okay.
You screw the die down till it bumps onto the shell plate.
So I gotta move the books
And raise your ram. Is there a way I can move these faces? Because right now excuse me, not Phil. Travis's face is covering up the RAM on my screen. And I hate to talk technical while we're on.
No, there isn't.
Okay.
I can adjust the camera.
If you would, please drop it down. Bring the RAM up or the press up into the center of the screen.
Let's see here. Good grief. Now where'd it go? There it is. Okay. So I'm gonna go dark for a second here because otherwise everybody's gonna get sick.
By the way, gentlemen, all of you, if you have something to contribute, don't let me hog the airtime like I usually do. You know, if you got something worthwhile to contribute, by all means, jump in there.
Oh, if I got something I want to say, I'll say it.
We know that about you, Jason. Mr. Tailpipe.
Okay.
Much better.
So now you can kind of see a little better. You don't need to see the top of this because that's just the primer tube. By the way, that's full already, so I'm not emptying it.
I don't blame you. All right. So anyway, what we're doing is we're going to adjust Mike's sizing die and decapping die so that's perfect, Mike. Bring it. Yep. Raise your shell plate up and leave it there and run your die down until it bumps onto your shell plate. And in most cases, the lock nut would be on over on his Lee press or red press over there. You can see the set screw for the lock nut. On the Dillon lock nuts, you use the wrench to tighten them.
This is a Hornady set of dice.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't realize that.
So, yeah. No, I haven't.
Couldn't read the brand name because of the distance from the camera.
Yep.
But anyway, so you take it, you're down against the shell plate, nice and snug.
Yep.
Well, then I would suggest that you gently snug up that nut that's on there.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be real tight. It's a fine thread on there, so it's like just snug it up a little bit. So you can't turn it with fingers.
Okay.
Now this caliber is 9mm.
Yes.
All right, grab yourself an empty case.
Whoops.
That's something we don't like to see done, folks.
Nope.
Mike did that accidentally.
Oh, this 9mm case here. I'm going to look it over.
Good.
Right.
Now, there's a little ding in the mouth right there, but there's no crease, so that shouldn't be a problem. And it has a primer in it, so I need to get the primer out. How does that work?
Sorry, I muted myself to clear my throat. That primer will come out when you put it in there, because if you look in the center of the die, there's a small pin protruding down from the die that will go through, as long as that's not Berdan brass. I'm sure you've already checked it. By that, I'm talking about single flash hole, single centrally located flash hole, as opposed to two flash holes located opposite each other, but not on center.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so that little pin that
flash
you can see, that little pin that you can see in the press, should go through that flash hole and push out that primer. That particular cartridge looked like it was fired in a Glock handgun. Okay, you raise up the RAM, and did your primer fall out?
Nope.
Okay.
Now it did.
And then it was stuck on your
So now what? So I lowered the RAM back down, and the primer fell into the catch like it's supposed to. So, kind of give you a. I wish I had a taller tripod, but unfortunately my kids lost it. So, slide the brass in here into the shell plate. And then I raise the ram like so. And as you can see, that disappeared. And then I lowered it back down and the primer fell out. That's strange. So that's not supposed to happen. So one of the things with these presses is you actually push the lever forward to prime. And so either I pushed it forward or something happened where it picked up a second primer and then dropped a perfectly good primer down into the used primer bin. So how this works to load the primers is they've got these long tubes, and I can't reach one right now, but the primer goes shiny side down into this tube right here. And you can see the hole. Oops, wrong way. You can see the hole there. So, and then it's got a little chaser that goes after it. So when it gets down towards the bottom, it pushes the primer out better. And you don't have a problem with that. Okay, so now what?
Well, me not being a drinker of the blue Kool-Aid, but I can take a stab. I'd say you need to get your next set of dies, your expanding die.
Okay. So I decapped this one. Is there anything else I'm going to do at this station? Jim?
Yeah.
So I decapped it.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no worries. I decapped it. Now what do I do? Decapped it, lowered the ram back down.
Okay. Now, ordinarily, what you would do is you would take a seed of primer, but because we're doing a single stage and we're setting up, we don't particularly need a primer in there just yet. Now, what I do is I take and set up my 550 to drop powder when I expand the case mouth.
Okay.
Don't we want to be sure that the case was sized properly right now?
You can pull it out and check it with yeah, well, yeah, there you go. I'm damn near a commercial reloader, and I forget to do things like don't trust my dies. Yes, you can pull your case out of the press and check it for specifications with your calipers. Check it for length, check it for diameters, check it for height. Yeah, absolutely you can, Jason. You're absolutely right. But like I said, I'm almost a commercial reloader. I forget to do things like that. I just trust my dies. The one thing I do see that since you zoomed in a little closer, Mike, is that your decapping pin seems to be sticking down a long way.
What will that hurt, Jim? Having it too far down?
Well, if you have it too far down, you can actually bump against the bottom of the inside of the case. And on rifle cartridges in particular, you could actually bend your whole spindle, the decapping spindle. It's not going to do a whole lot for a handgun cartridge because there is no expander ball in there. But you could possibly damage the decapping spindle, bend it, whatever. Like with the Lee Universal decapping die, you're not going to do anything because it shoves back up in there. But Mike's using Hornady dies, so the thing is, you know, people get in the habit of it causing their decapping spindle or decapping pin to protrude through the case too far, simply because they don't realize, like Mike experienced the problems with bottom of the decapping pin. Well, that can be solved with a stone. Just stone and dull that you want to dull down that decapping pin. But anyway, Mike, you pulled it out. You checked it with calipers. You're all back in spec, right?
Well, I measured it against a new one, but I didn't look at specs. or not a new one, but I measured it against an unfired one, and it's definitely smaller than the unfired one.
Computer just locked up again.
Couldn't you also just drop it in the chamber of your appropriate firearm and see if it goes, see if it drops all the way in there?
You could.
Do you mean a plunk test?
Yeah.
Wow.
Concept, I know.
Should I go get a firearm so we can do that?
Oh, hell yeah.
Knowing you, Mike, you probably have one right there in the room with you.
Actually, no, I didn't tonight because of.
Well, we'll let us forgo that for the sake of expediency. Just forgo that. We'll just assume everything works well.
Okay. But what we should do is we should look up in our reloading manual what the specs are.
That would work. Because I happen to know you got books right there with you.
Yep.
And you probably have your calipers nearby, if not in hand.
Yep. So, the mouth of the cartridge on the outside should be 0.380.
I'll bet anything it's slightly small.
Yes, it is.
How much is slightly, Mike?
Well, I can't really say because we can't use that type of language on the show.
Okay. How big is it? In inches.
0.373.
Oh, that's not bad.
Measure.
You're going to expand that back out anyway.
Yep, we are. Whereas a fired is 0.382. Now, the important thing I want to show on this is, if we can get it to no more dent.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. That's the important thing. Okay. So now we're done playing with that. We'll put it back in. Next.
All right. Now, do you want to go ahead and set up for bullet expansion, make a dummy round?
Sure.
Okay, because I happen to know you got a alarm or whatever you do.
Why do we make a dummy round?
For testing purposes, for measurement purposes, that sort of thing, for future use. I'm sure, Mike, I know you well enough to know that you've already got dummy rounds. But we'll make this dummy round for the show tonight, all right?
Exactly. So, plus, this may not wind up. Here's the thing when you do this, gang. The cartridge we're making tonight might not wind up exactly like the finished cartridge that I had from before. So keep that thought in mind. That's one of the reasons why we as reloaders never screw with our dies unless we have a problem. Because there's no guarantee you're going to get it back to the exact same settings, no matter how good you are. Unless you spend a ridiculous amount of time playing with it, then it's possible. But we're talking, unless you get lucky, hours at least. Turning dies, 2 degrees, 1 degree, 3 degrees.
We're talking 16ths of a turn, guys. Maybe even 30 seconds or 64ths of a turn. 3 degrees, that's 1/20th of a turn. One turn is 360 degrees, right, Phil?
You did not just ask me to math at 9 o'clock at night, did you?
Actually, it's 10 o'clock my time. But anyway, yes, I was right. I know that. I'm just messing because you were muted.
You're wrong for that.
Anyway, so Mike, I suggest you index over 2 positions. Do not go to the powder station. Go over to the case mouth expanding station. That would be in the 550. That would be position 3.
Okay. So I want to rotate this twice. Now,
index, not rotate.
I have a question.
Yes.
Your powder dispenser has your expander on it. Why are we skipping that?
Because Mike's using it as a powder drop. His expanding station is station 3. I know what you're thinking, Jason. I have the same. I never do what Mike's doing, but we're talking about setting up dies. We're not talking about setting up a powder measure tonight.
Okay.
As you know, that's a whole different ball of wax. You could do half a show on just setting up a powder drop.
So what you're saying is this little piece here,
right,
can actually be an expander.
It is.
If you want to play with it. So, okay.
But you had it set up so the expander was in station 3. Right. Looking underneath, guys, looking underneath the press where Mike's got it there, where you see the RL5. Okay, he's got his resizing die in station 1. Mike, put your finger on top of the press, please. Right. Okay, that's station 1. Put it on station 2, 3, and then 4.
Then there's 4.
Right. Those are the numerical order of the stations.
And this is the spot for a light.
It's also an alignment spot too.
Shh. So the reason that I am doing this the way I'm doing this is because the dies I bought came with specifically the expander. So, and setting this up, in my personal opinion, is a lot easier than playing around with this to set it up to expand.
I strenuously disagree.
Well,
I do too.
But whatever. We're not talking about setting up powder measure tonight. Let's proceed on to setting up that expander ball.
Okay.
Expander station. Because we're going to treat this, we're doing this as if it were a single stage machine.
Right. Because we're not going to actually put powder. We're not going to dispense powder on this right now. This is setting it up for a new reloader that you could actually, how you could get away with buying this and using this instead of buying just a good old-fashioned single stage. So,
all right. Well, you've got a bullet, probably full metal jacket or a plated bullet handy, right?
yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and put your expander die in station 3. But don't run it down very far. Just put it in maybe 1 or 2 turns. Boy, that looks out of square. It's the camera angle, I know.
Right.
Boy, it looks out of square.
Doesn't it? So, I will lift this up so you can see that it's not out of square.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Let's go ahead and turn that index that shell plate 2 positions. Partially rotate the shell plate. You're hanging up on something, looks like.
Yep. What could it be? The primer.
Oh, yes. The primer is partially seated. Now that he's indexed at 1 station.
Yep.
To station 2. And Mike's hanging up on the primer again. That's the primer in the machine. We didn't go there. All right, Mike, raise your RAM up if you would, please.
I'm going to show everybody the primer.
Oh, he's got a live primer in there, and he doesn't want to take it out. And I don't blame him.
So, the way the way I've got mine set up is so that the primer is slightly above the ledge, shall we say. And you can kind of see as I lift that up. Well, you can't really see because you can see the little priming mechanism there.
Yeah, it's a primer cup.
So the primer cup, and it's on a spring. And as I show it back up here, you can see the base of the RAM. It's not the shell plate. It's actually the base. And so the way this is set up is that the primer just barely peaks above.
Right. It's called the shell platform.
So. And that's why it sticks. Because theoretically, the way the machine's set up to operate, when I go to index the press, that primer's not there anymore.
Right.
It's in the brass. So, all right. So now we have it in station 3 because we've indexed it twice. What's next?
Jason, you want to take over from here?
Yep. So run your RAM up and then start screwing down that that expansion die to where it touches.
I thought about grabbing the other camera, folks, but unfortunately I don't have any way to hold it steady. So there really isn't any. I don't know if you can see in there. You can see the brass, but you can't really see the die. Oh, there's the die starting to come through. But I don't want that to make contact. I want the inside of that die to make contact. So now I just made contact with the brass. What's next?
Now you're going to start checking it with a bullet to see if you can seat your bullet in it.
But I just made contact. Is that theoretically going to be enough?
No, you're going to want a little bit more.
Okay.
I don't know what the number is, 1/8 of a turn, 1/16 of a turn.
Right. But it's easier to turn down and then bring your RAM back up. Because sometimes it's just minor adjustments, like little smidgets of a turn. So now I'm going to try and put the bullet in and don't work. Because I actually didn't really flare anything at all. So I'm going to make another little adjustment. And then run it up again. And run it back down. And check the bullet. Still nothing. Sorry, I was trying to figure out what that is, the little gray thing in the back. And it's the fan that I got sitting on the floor in the way back. So Jason, what happens if I just take a huge swing at this and turn it a whole bunch?
You'll overexpand it.
Then what happens?
Probably won't go into your seating die. And you take a chance on splitting your mouth.
So right now I'm going to show you one of the best features of a Dillon 550. So on my Loadmaster and on my my Loadmaster and my my Lock and Load AP, I have to swing the stupid shell plate all the way around to get a piece of brass out.
Right.
This, just pull that pin and it slides right out. So I'm going to show you what happens, and I did this purposefully.
You bugled it.
I bugled it.
Wow.
So, Mike, can you feel that expander plug flaring the case when you do that?
No.
It's just moving the RAM. You don't feel anything?
Nope. Did not have to put any extra pressure to do that. So, sometimes you may. 9mm, I don't, ever. The only thing that ever really gives resistance on this press is punching primers and resizing. So even seating bullets, there isn't really any resistance. So that is not what you want to do, kids. That goes in the scrap bin. But I did it on purpose because that's why you start slow. So now I'm going to take another piece of brass, feed it in. And I'm going to run it up. size it, bring it back down, and I'm going to cheat because I know I need to index it, but I don't want to run all the way back down and hit the primer because I'm not priming it. So I'm going to go ahead and index it before I bring the RAM deck down all the way. So now what I did is I backed this back out, run the RAM back up, bring this back down until I feel it. And you can feel some resistance as you turn it a little bit, but usually I've found sometimes it'll actually push the RAM down. But I want to see if I can get it out so I can put the bullet in. And you're going to have a different flare for cast, plated, full metal jacket. So that's the thing you have to kind of check every time. So it's, by the way, I hope nobody's playing the drinking game, because if I did, everybody's just gotten wasted in the last 3 minutes. How many times I said so? At first, it's just a minimal. You don't even really see it. I mean, if you were measuring, you could measure the flare. And I'm going slower for, you know, the experience more than anything. I could go a lot faster at this and already be done, but I'm kind of showing everybody how it goes. And the idea, and some people do this a little differently. Me personally, I want the bullet to at least sit. These are flat bottoms. So, and I'll, you know, move it. If it starts to tilt as I'm indexing it, then it's not good enough. Because the reason I have a progressive press is so I can make a bunch of ammo. But even as you're starting out, you want to learn how to do it right in the first place. And so you want to, the whole purpose of flaring this is so you can set the bullet into the case and not have it shear.
As in scrape the copper off the sides, correct, Mike?
Yep. Scrapes the copper off the sides, scrapes the lead off the side on a lead, or
buckle the case.
What's that?
Or you'll buckle the case.
Yes.
Done that a few times.
Jacket. Because there is no give to the bullet. So the brass is softer, and the brass is what gives.
Yeah. Did that a few times when I first started reloading 38 Special.
Mm-hmm.
And they give right in the middle, and they just kind of spread out.
Now, I've got this one set up so I can, if I push, and as everybody may have been paying attention, I pushed hard enough to actually push the plate down a bit. So it's in there, and I can turn it. And it actually stayed well enough that it stayed all the way down into the chute.
Wow.
So it's not, and if I want to, I could actually go more. I actually did have it set more before. Because you don't, and we're going to find out if I've got it enough. Because you may not have it set enough when you go to do the next step. What's the next step?
Well, the next step would be to lock down that nut that's on that Hornady die.
Okay. Finger tighten. The only thing I don't like about these dies is they use an O-ring and sometimes it doesn't work right.
Yep, the lead does the same thing.
So, got a little rust on it. Whoops. Okay, so now what?
Well, now it's time to seat your bullet.
Okay, so what?
Okay, first thing you're going to do with that is you're going to run the seating plug in a couple turns.
In?
Like in.
Down?
Which direction?
Down. You're going to seat your bullet first. Then you go back off your plug, and then you're going to do your crimp. Okay, then you're going to bring your plug back up to the bullet once you get the case crimped.
This is all assuming you're not using a separate crimp die.
Correct. Yeah, because I know Mike is going to take and create a dummy round, and we're using our experience to do this. So, I personally like seating and crimping two different stations, but on a 550, I don't have enough stations to do all that.
So Jim, what do you do with your other station? Since you use the powder dispenser.
Thank you for correcting me, Mike. That's exactly what I do. I use the powder dispenser to flare. I seat the bullet in station 3, and I crimp the bullet in station 4.
But it's been so long you didn't remember.
You're right. You're actually
Perhaps
right.
You should practice with your 550 tomorrow, Jim.
Do you need to see photos of my reloading setup? Do you really want to see photos of it?
Absolutely, I want to see photos.
Okay. I'll send them directly to you, Mr. Trumbo. Because I'm kind of embarrassed. My press is locked up in a wooden crate. Anyway, run your bullet seeder die in a little bit, Mike, and run it down till you can make contact. Then run your ram up with a cartridge in it, and run it down till you make contact.
So I index it.
Yes, that's a step I forgot.
Then I run the ram up.
And it should go up in no problem at all. And now you should start running your ram down, your bullet.
Well, right now, I am cranking the die down.
Yes.
And I have the seeder up. So as everybody can see, there's a lot of space there.
Mm-hmm.
Because why?
You'll see. Okay, you wait until you make contact. Make very light contact.
With the shell plate or
with the case?
With the case.
You should be able to feel it with the case.
Okay. So I have light contact with the case.
All right. Now, did your bullet seat at all?
No.
Okay. Then start, but loosen up the lock nut on that seeder plug.
Yep, it is.
Okay. Run the seeder plug down until you feel it make contact with the bullet.
Okay.
Your seating die is actually backing off a little bit. What I've told you to do is run the die down till the crimping part of it makes contact with the flared mouth guys. You should feel that bullet contact.
Yep.
Okay. Give it a half turn, Mike, because that won't be enough. I can tell you that now. But give it a half turn. That's snuggled it up, right?
Yep.
And your bullet should have seated a little tiny bit.
Yep. Probably not enough to really notice.
Exactly. All right. So give it another. Leave the ram down.
Okay.
Give it a half turn. Now,
okay.
These are very coarse adjustments, people. So now, Mike, I know you're going to feel that bullet seat a little bit on that press. Now, did it seat at all?
Not really.
All right. Well, remember too, you're watching your COAL too.
Yep.
So, another half turn. Now you should start noticing it. In fact, I would suggest that you take that case out of that press and check your COAL to make sure you're not too short.
Okay.
And to make sure whether or not you are too long. You probably are. By the way, does anybody have at their fingertips the COAL for the 9mm cartridge with a full metal jacket bullet?
What weight?
Let's just say 150?
115.
115. Give me a second. 115 grain round nose, right?
Yep.
1.1.
Yep.
They're all going to be almost interesting detail. A lot of the cartridges, all the 9mm bullets are going to be within a few thousandths of each other because they got to fit in a magazine. In other words, Mike's got to go down 104 thousandths.
True. But the reason I ask round nose versus hollow point is, I mean, obviously, if you deal with a hollow point round, your OAL is going to be slightly shorter.
Yes, sir.
The hole is truncated.
But you can't make it too short because it closes up the boiler room too much. The second thing is it won't feed right if it's too short.
Yeah.
But anyway, what dictates the overall length of these cartridges, with particularly the round nose bullet Mike's using, is the magazine. So Mike knows he's got to go down quite a bit more. Yeah, he went 3/4 of a turn, and you'll see a dramatic difference now, Mike.
That was a full turn.
Okay, close enough. A little tidbit for you guys out there in podcast land. If you want to, take a Sharpie pen and put an index mark right there in the knurling. A fine index mark, and you could treat that as in this case, at 3 o'clock, because Mike's 6 o'clock is behind him. His 12 o'clock is in front of him. 3 o'clock's on his right. So there, it's just a way of telling how much you've already turned your die. I use a file on mine simply because I know when to quit. But you can use your Sharpie pen to measure an index mark, or make an index mark that you can use to measure an eighth of a turn. All right, check your COAL, Mike, when you did that. He seated that bullet a little deeper, guys. So we got to check. Now we really got to check our COAL closely.
1.155.
Pretty good, Mike. You went about halfway. Now, in this case, guys, this case meaning 9mm, you could probably wind up seating at a 1.098, 1.095, and it wouldn't do a thing. But you don't want to be any longer than 1.1.
I see that wasn't much at all because I'm at 1.52.
No, of course not. You must not have turned it very much. Either that, or you took up a lot of the slop in the threads, and because you don't have your lock nut, down yet.
Right. Why don't I have a lock nut down then?
Because you need to seat your bullet first. Tightening up that lock nut will come.
Yep.
Did you notice how much that die moves? How much slop there is in those threads?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. There's probably 20,000, 10 to 15,000 slop in those threads, vertical slop. Speak up, Mike, so my camera goes over to you.
No, it should be locked. Oh, that's right. Yours is being wonky. If you click on my box, Jim, it should lock it on for you.
All right, thanks.
So.
Yeah, notice he keeps checking his COAL, guys. Even though we don't see it, I can see it on the, believe it or not, I can see it on the shiny ball on the handle of the press.
So right now it's at 1.135. So I'm making progress, but painfully slow. But there's a reason it's painfully slow.
Baby steps are a good thing in this case.
Yep. And I forgot I had the camera pointed way up.
Thank you.
So. $1.119.
You got to go another 19 thousandths.
Yep. Because 19 thousandths is the difference between fitting in the magazine and not fitting in the magazine.
That's right.
In case you're wondering why I keep putting the pin back in every time, because I need to make sure the cartridge stays where it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the pin's job.
And that's the other thing too about those pins. If you don't put them back in the hole, they wind up walking to the other side of the garage.
Or worse. But the other thing, if I don't have the pin in there, that little bugger can move out, and it can move out just enough so I crush it. And now it's
That's right.
And that would really irritate me. So.
A little aside that it's also, guys, remember, it's also very easy to over adjust. Mike is taking baby steps for a very, very serious reason. He's creeping up on it. Yes, he would go faster, and it'll go faster when you're doing it on your own. But he's creeping up on it carefully to take and show how important it is. You want this cartridge to come up to the correct length. You want to sneak up on it. You don't want to just jump out there because you could wind up seating it 50 thousandths too short, too deep. And when you do that, well, now you're into a whole nother game that you don't really want to play in.
Nope. $1.104.
Yep, you got to get rid of that 4 thousandths. And at 14 threads per inch, the advancement at 1/14th of a turn, or 1/16th of a fourth. Yeah, in other words, like Phil said, we don't want to do the math this late at night.
1.100.
Perfect. Now, one more adjustment could ruin that cartridge. But remember, guys, we're making a dummy round, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, no, we're not done yet. Mike needs to put when he's ready, he'll put that back in the press, and he's going to back off on his cedar plug. Why? Because when he advances his crimping die, the cedar plug will go in with it. So he needs to back that cedar plug way the heck off. Just the cedar plug, not the crimping die, the die body. Yes, it's a slow, tedious process, but once he's done adjusting, it'll all come together. We're almost there. All right, Mike, if you would kindly run that cartridge back up in there and then pull it back down, making sure when you pull back down, check your overall length one more time for me, please, to make sure you didn't drive that bullet in too far. We know he didn't, but the point is this is what we're doing for OCD reasons.
Yep.
Sorry about my squeaky chair.
It's not as bad as the one on Reloading Radio.
I take it you heard all my old shows, Mike.
Yep.
Which is why he came to me in the first place for Reloading Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I did not abandon Reloading Radio in favor of Reloading Podcast, guys. I quit. I just couldn't podcast by myself.
He was looking in the mirror too much, and it just got to him. So
it's kind of lonesome in that mirror. All right, but anyway, so you put your cartridge back in, Mike?
Yep.
All right, if you would run it up, run the RAM up.
Okay.
All right, making sure. Okay, you got your cedar plug backed off quite a bit. Now, slowly and carefully loosen your lock nut a little bit. Make sure it doesn't interfere with what you're about to do.
Okay.
Slowly and carefully advance your crimping die down till you feel it make firm contact on that case mouth.
Yep.
Okay. Lower your shell platform. Lower your RAM.
Okay. Hang on a second. I gotta get the chair out of the way. Okay.
All right. Advance your die about 1/8 of a turn, and that's pretty aggressive. Here's where your Sharpie pen mark comes in handy, guys. 1/8 of a turn. That's a good long way.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, bring your shell platform back up. Look at that die jump up when he did that, guys. Do it again, Mike. If you didn't crimp it, do it again. Lift it up again. Watch that. I want to watch. See that right there? That's slop in the threads. That's normal. That's manufacturing tolerances. But anyway, did you get any crimp on that cartridge, Mike? You have to take it out and check for the diameter of the case mouth.
Feels
That's one thing. That's one thing we didn't do is when we were doing this is check the diameter of the case mouth before he starts seating the bullet. You said that should be 380 when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
What's your case mouth diameter?
It's actually 0.374. No, it's 376.
You're telling me that case mouth is already crimped against the side the walls of the bullet.
Yep.
I can't.
This case was smaller than 0.380. I don't remember the exact number, but
you're right, Jason.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Mike. I'm going to have to take and trust your judgment. I can't see the case. Is that case mouth sufficiently crimped tightly enough against that bullet wall?
Well, one way to tell. Take a caliper. The idea when you do this is you're trying to get it back flat. So you kind of adjust your caliper and slide it up.
Yeah.
And see if it catches.
It looks like it is.
So, and never go through the same spot twice. Yeah, see, there's a ridge there.
Yep.
You can also usually feel it with your fingertips. I mean, honestly, it sounds kind of common sense, but that's how I've learned to judge if I've got my crimp set properly.
Yep.
So advance your die you could even go finer increments, 1/16 of a turn, because we're working right close to the very edge of where we want to be.
Definitely makes a difference. Now, the nice thing is, if I'm using this caliper method, sliding it up, I can actually move the ram out of the way, and I can slide this in. I don't need to see the numbers, but I can actually use this
for a feeler
and use that to kind of hold the case and slide it up. Now that time it's not catching. It looks kind of goofy the way I was doing it, so I'll pull it back out. But that time it slides right off. So,
in all probability, that case would fit your chamber.
Yep.
Now that's how you would single stage a Dillon.
Yep. So
although we did leave out a big step, and that would be the powder measure. But go ahead, Mike. You were going to say something.
I was going to say next week, what we'll do is show you how to set up the powder measurer to expand the case and how to set it up to throw your charge. So we'll do that next week. Chris in the chat said you can also put a straight edge along the side of the brass. That's another way to check. So there's lots of different little tricks that you can do.
Yeah, but you should have a caliper for measuring OAL. So if you got it right there with you, why not just use it?
Well, the thing is, too, like Jason's saying, any reloader worth your salt is going to have a set of good calipers. Whether it's digital dial doesn't make a difference. As long as they're quality calipers, you'll be fine. Metal jaws, stuff like that. I would not use those plastic Lyman. Well, I shouldn't even name names, but you shouldn't think it's not metallic.
So one of the cases that, or one of the questions that was asked was earlier in the chat was John Knapp, and he asked, what's the paperclip for? And what he's talking about is right there on the 550, this little paperclip. And what that does is that creates a funnel to help feed the brass in, whether you're doing a single or you've got a brass feeder.
Right. It also helps retain the cartridge once it's in there. It springs out of the way every time you put a cartridge in there. And the flat end of the paper clip it's actually a spring wire clip, but the flat end of that so-called paper clip actually not presses, but retains the cartridge in the empty cartridge in the station number 1.
As opposed to having the pin.
Right. That pin wouldn't give like that spring clip does.
Yep. So next week we'll show you about this. And about this. And just how well this lovely little machine actually works. So,
Mike, I have a question for you. Do you happen to have a separate seating die and separate crimping die?
No.
For 9mm. Okay. Then we don't very well have the capability of doing that.
So, doesn't mean I can't get one.
Mike, one of our listeners asked a good question. Do you need to reset the seating depth now?
Yes.
Finish crimping.
We forgot to finish the whole procedure, Mike.
Yes, we did. Okay, so put it back in. Now what do I do?
You run it up like you were going to crimp it again. Okay, run your shell platform up.
Yep.
Up into the die.
Okay.
Next thing you do is you tighten up the lock nut on the die body. That takes a lot of the slop out. Actually, what it does, it doesn't take the slop out. The press and everything has already taken the ram and the cartridge has already taken out most of the slop, vertical slop anyway. Okay. Don't need it real tight, Mike. Okay, now what you do is you run your cedar plug down until you feel it lightly touch the nose of the bullet. Then you gently tighten up that second lock nut. Right, just like that. Very light touch. Now he'll take his crescent wrench and he'll just very, very lightly snug that little tiny thin-walled nut up. Good. Stop, Mike.
All right.
Now take it out and check and see if your cartridge overall length has changed. I wouldn't be at all. I sometimes I have actually changed that.
Nope, we nailed it.
Good.
Still the same.
So now Mike has a very handy dandy dummy round. No primer, no powder, but he can use that for setting up his 2 dies. Well, at least he can use it for setting up his bullet seating die.
Yep.
He can't use it very well for setting up his expanding die because he got a bullet in the way.
Exactly. So, all right, folks, this one's gone a bit. Started a bit late, and then we've kind of gone a little bit late with everything. So, but we wanted to make sure we covered this for the gentleman who had the problems. Like I said, this was a continuation from last week. So,
Mike?
Yeah.
If you would, please Put that dummy round in front of the camera and try to get it focused up so we could see that you don't have the hourglass wall that we had before.
Nope.
Look at that nice straight wall on that thing.
Yep.
Can you put your finger on top and then on the bottom? Thank you, Mike. Look at that nice straight wall he's got on that cartridge.
No hourglass.
Good job, Mike. Very good job.
And most importantly,
No flare.
a clear, defined lip on the neck, on the mouth of that cartridge.
Why is
Why
that
is
so
that
important, Jason?
Headspace.
That's right. 9mm is a cartridge that headspaces on the mouth of the case.
And I believe that was Elliot that had the question. So I think that was his gentleman's name. I forgot to put it in the show notes. So, but
Elliot.
All right, folks. Want to thank everybody who tunes in. Looks like Jason is starting to nod off there too. I figured it's past Jim's bedtime, so he should be out about 10 seconds. Him and Stan, you know, well past their bedtimes and say, we appreciate the questions. We love doing both. So next week it's going to be Pistol again for the Cartridge Corner. So we'll have fun with that. I don't know what we'll do yet.
Well, we need to finish up the setting up that powder measure.
Yep. So we'll do a pistol cartridge, and then we'll set up the powder measurer, and we'll go from there. It'll be a fun time. Want to thank everybody who tunes in, sends us emails, sends us questions, comments, concerns, and want to thank Mark. A special thank to Mark Hookham. We beat him up quite a bit, but he's really saving me a bit of work by doing a lot of the editing, going through and taking out the stuff that, like dead air and comments that aren't really don't pertain to the topic. You know, stuff that maybe is, you know, inside baseball that doesn't necessarily belong in the show. You know, some of the other stuff. But a lot of the noises and stuff, you know, that was something that for 180 episodes, we didn't really have to worry about because we were on not video. So we didn't really care about the sound, the silences and all the extra crap because we took them out. So as we're doing more video, we're trying to be a little more self-disciplined. So, but, Mark's busy taking that stuff out, and so hopefully we'll continue to improve each week and make sure our microphones are properly adjusted when we pick it back up so you don't hear us going and that type of stupid thing. But want to thank everybody who swings by the Amazon and Brownells affiliate links over at firearmsradio.tv. It doesn't cost you any extra money, just a little bit extra time. It helps the network out. Want to thank all the Patreons who continue to support us and just continue to help us out. We got another new one, and we'll have them all listed in the new show notes for 214, which should post tomorrow night, hopefully. So Mark just got done editing it, doing the final edit on it, so I'll get it posted tomorrow night.
Does that mean we have to be nice to Hookham?
No.
No.
Good. Never.
No, because you know, when he volunteered, I asked him if we had to be, and he says, well, I'm not going to be nice to you. Why should you be nice to me? So.
Thanks, Hookham.
So, yeah, if y'all see Hookham in the chat or you see him in, you know, the podcast page of the podcast group, just make sure you give him a thanks. Editing is a horrible job that sucks. And it's
terrible.
So
awful job.
Yeah, Jason knows he's done it too. So
I edited reloading radio, my own, I had to take quite a bit of material out.
Yep. So just thank everybody. So, and seriously, if you're looking for steel or you're looking for paper targets, Buckeye Targets, one-stop shopping.
Yay, Travis.
Not just because Travis is on the show. It's serious, you know. I'm not going to, we decided long ago we got into this. We weren't going to support anything or anybody that we wouldn't personally use and we wouldn't personally back. And we still won't. So it makes awesome, great stuff, great quality control.
Thanks, Mike.
It's easy to give compliments when it's true.
Yeah, your products are good, Travis. You're kind of an asshole, but your products are good.
Spell that one Trumbo. Trumbo.
Well, but like I told Mike when I came on, I didn't really want to talk about the products and stuff because I didn't want to turn it into a commercial. So,
nope. And for the most part, I respect his wishes, but every once in a while, I'm going to give him a plug anyway. So that's the nice thing about being in charge. I can get away with that crap. Anyway, on a serious note, just, you know, it's amazing. This was 215, and it still blows me away that we get to get here once a week. And once I hit, you know, there's all sorts of issues, you know, I've been dealing with chasing down problems and stuff. But once I hit start broadcast, all that crap goes away. And it's friends sitting around talking about reloading.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do people tune in, people around the world tune in to us talking about reloading. Yeah, we screw around. Yeah, we have fun, but that's part of it. Because we never started this project to be a serious, monotone, boring educational session. Those videos are out there. We want to be informative. We want to be catering to the new reloader. At the same time, we want to get an experienced reloader. Oh my God. We want to have fun while we're doing it. So, and it, you know, this makes it all worth it when we get the comments back. The guys in the chat are all, you know, they're giving us nice comments and stuff. We get comments. Travis just mentioned in the private chat, just for us, that he said, a guy on Facebook said that episode 213 was the best audio yet. So we're getting there. And that's awesome. And it's great to hear that we're getting better. And I'm getting some good feedback from lots of different people that kind of helps out. So, but, and the fact that everybody hangs in with us as we're going through these issues and continuing to work it out, it's awesome. So thank you. Seriously, thank you. And on that note, keep that brass shiny.
And keep your powder dry.
You're up, Travis.
it's not a matter of if, but when.
Squeeze. Don't yank that trigger.
Thanks, everyone. Seriously. Thanks.
Good night, y'all.